A very good afternoon to all of you, and I welcome all the participants for the post-lunch session. In this session, we have Dr. Felix Bast from our very own university, Central University of Punjab. I guess most of the participants must be quite familiar with Dr. Felix by now. But as a formal thing, let me introduce you. I would say somebody who is actually knitting up all this program together and making it happen. So Dr. Felix, he is associate professor at our university, Central University of Punjab. As you can see, he has done brilliantly throughout his academics, and he's a very enthusiastic teacher, as is apparent from the President of India inviting him for the in-resident inspired teacher. He is an elected National Core Committee member of INEAS, and he's heading biology and the medicine area. Then he is also a member of National COVID-19 Task Force by INSA, and also induced by Indian Scientists' Response to COVID-19. So apart from this, I think I would add more few lines which are not reflected in the slide. He's an avid science writer and communicator. As I know him, you must have seen some of his recent very general and logical and relevant YouTube videos. I guess many of you must be enjoying them. And then lastly, many more. There's an entire list I can just talk about. A unique feather in his cap is that he was a part of Indian scientific expedition to Antarctica. 2016-17 batch, and I think he's almost always excited to share his experiences. And you see the penguins in that SL, the Science Leadership Workshop. That is the precise origin. He has put his entire experience, and I think we are enjoying that. So over to Dr. Felix. We are really happy to have you as a speaker, apart from as a host.
Yeah, thank you so much, Manju. It is really nice of you for the introduction. I'm really humbled, Dr. Manju Jain, and allow me to share my screen. So I have a small presentation for this thing. So this talk is going to be a very general talk about the virtues in a science leader. According to my perception, what are the virtues that I see in a science leader? So little bit about me. Many of you don't know that from my name. Many questions I get from the general audience is, are you really an Indian? Because your name doesn't sound like an Indian. Felix Bast sounds like a foreign name. But now I'm pretty much Indian. I'm born in a traditional family. Basically, my father, he unfortunately expired 2016. And yes, he was actually into so many things. He was a teacher. Vishnu Nambishan was his name. And my mother is Ratnavalli, and I'm born in a traditional Hindu Brahmin family. And basically the name, what has happened is that the Felix Bast is basically, it is something you can call it as nom de plume, that I changed my name. I changed my name because of so many influences. For example, Catcher in the Rye is one of the very interesting book that I read as a teenager. So many influences are there, including Candide as the Voltaire. The Voltaire has written the Candide, and so many of Voltaire's books as well. How many of you know that Voltaire's name was not Voltaire? It was Francois Marie Arouet, and he changed his name to the Voltaire because of so many reasons. And my name itself was earlier named Srijit Vadake Matham Nambishan, is basically a religion and caste identifying name. So I don't want to associate my name with that kind of connotation. I was more like an iconoclast or a maverick when I was young. So of course I was a big time a cat lover. I love cats a lot. And my name, my surname, Bast, as you can see, is basically a goddess of cats in ancient Egypt. This is a statue of the Bastard from the British Museum, London. And this Bast is basically the goddess of cats. And Felix itself is the name of the scientific name of Felis, which is quite similar to Felix. Felis is the scientific name of the cats, Felis domesticus. And also, as you know, the Felix is a very famous character in Disney character of the cat character. So I was an avid cat lover, and yes, of course, the icon of Maverick Times. Of my teenage days, actually asked me to change my name. So I did it, and I'm not looking back. So, well, now coming to the science leadership, according to me, the science leadership is, it is not a position or a title. That is what many people get confused about that. According to my perception, it's nothing to do with the position. It is an action and example, how you actually lead your life in accordance with the scientific thinking and scientific temperament to make you a good leader. It's nothing to do with your leadership, the position. So leadership is all about the actions. So it's a very interesting quote by Rumi, the Persian, the scholar as well as the poet. Yesterday I was clever, so I wanted to change the world. Today I'm wise, so I'm changing myself. So I think it's a very profound wisdom that is being relayed in this Rumi's quote, that we ourselves have to change, and ourselves have to, live in accordance with nature and in accordance with the scientific thinking to become a better science leader. So great science leaders don't preach what to do. As per my perception, the great science leaders show you how it is being done. You yourself becoming a part of the scientific missionary. So as a leader, we should empower others than anointing ourselves as supreme authorities. That is how I consider the science leadership. So, if you anoint yourself as a supreme authority and forcefully, give the preaching to others, then definitely you're not going to be a good science leader. This is also one of my favorite quote. This is by famous, he's a famous Stoic philosopher. If you accomplish something good with hard work, then the labor passes quickly, but the good endures. If you do something shameful in pursuit of pleasure, then the pleasure passes quickly, but the shame endures. So it's extremely important. The virtue is very important quality of a science leader, and defining what constitutes a virtue, good virtue, is extremely important. So that is why I would like to spend some time with you all about talking about the virtue. So for me, one of the greatest leader, not just merely science leader, he's more like exploration leader, is Ernst Shackleton. He did a fantastic, probably most well-known expedition to Antarctica in 1914. And guess what? His expedition in Endurance, the ship that he took is called Endurance. It was a failed mission because he couldn't even reach Antarctica, but still he is revered as the best ever a leader can ever have. So many of his qualities. So to recite his story, he actually started from South Georgia. He went all the way to the Queen Maud, but right here somewhere in October 1915, his ship, the Endurance, got stuck in packed ice. And, they have to abandon that ship, and the Endurance sinks in November 1915, and it has crushed and abandoned, but all the 28 men, friends, he could save all the life because of his pursuit of, the grit and excellence. So that actually makes a great leader, even in terms of trouble, how you are actually leading an organization. So that this is basically a failed mission, but still it also depends on how you define the failure. Is this a failed mission? According to me, it's not a failed mission. Even though he couldn't able to reach Antarctica, he could save all the lives. The 28 men he saved because of his perseverance and because of his determination. So I think that is the greatest quality of any science leader. So his original plan was going to Antarctica through the Queen Maud Land. And I was fortunate to be part of this Queen Maud Land, India's Antarctic station. One of India's Antarctic station called Maitri is somewhere here, and I could able to spend 2 months in the Maitri. So that is what I would like to tell you. So failures make a great science leader. That's really, really important. So it's not that failures are the opposite. Many people, especially youngsters, consider failures as an antonym, the opposite of the success. But I won't say that. The failures are not antonym, but it's a part of the success. So if you ask me what the science is, my answer would be learning from the failure. That's how the science makes progress. So famous British philosopher of science, Karl Popper, call it as falsification. That is exactly how we are progressing through the feedback loops. So failures, we should treat them as inflection points and information to inform the future decision. Exactly, that is how the Bayesian logic works. Learn from the failure for the further improvement. That is exactly how the science works. So it's a very famous quote by, again, a Stoic philosopher, Marcus Aurelius: the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. So all these failures and all those impediments, all those obstacles pave way, makes us a better leader. So a good science leader is someone who knows the scientific thinking. That is extremely important. That it's a great asset of any science leader is to know what the scientific thinking is all about. So, well, as a young leader ourselves, we all know that the paper rejection happens most of the time. Lab protocols also doesn't work. So don't let those demotivate you. The ability to learn from failures is the most important quality a science leader can ever have. So authoritarian leaders aren't good for science at all, as science by itself has no authorities. It is anti-authoritarian, the scientific method, because even a school kid can criticize the scholarly papers of Nobel laureates, and that is how the science grows. So if you're authoritarian man can be a good science leader, that is a wrong conception according to my perception. Science leadership is all about influence but not authority. So how you are influencing through ethically and moral manner. So influence again doesn't mean that you are in a mad rush to create lots of tremendous followers like politicians do, but they are in a mission to foster scientific temperament in the society, make science works, and create better mentors and leaders of tomorrow. So that is extremely important. That is how I actually define who a science leader is. So this is a graphic which I got from Skill Camp, and this actually shows you the difference between who a boss and a real leader is. So leader has to be part of the grassroots level worker, and if you think the leader as a boss, like the boss here, he is actually commanding the workforce to do this and leading the thing. No, that concept is really wrong. Basically that concept is wrong. The leader has to be of this way. So to quote Arnold Glasow, a famous author, a good leader takes title little more than his share of blame and little less than his share of the credit. A good leader takes a little more than his share of the blame, a little less than his share of the credit. So I think that the quote is really profound here. Another very interesting quote by Simon Sinek, another famous author: a boss has a title while the leader has the people. So if you really want to have the people, then only way is to become part of the grassroots level rather than being an authoritarian leader. That is how the leadership works. A great science leader should nurture wild ideas, curiosity, and creativity, friends. And she will promote out of the box ideas and tinkering rather than the planned work. Yes, the research has to be curiosity driven to have a massive impact. The paradigm shift, as per the Thomas Kuhn, the American philosopher of science, the paradigm shift happens through serendipitous discoveries rather than the planned scientific experiments. So public trust in science is that is the biggest problem right now, as I can see that, the public around the world is increasingly avoid the following the government regulations like wearing mask in public places. So today morning as well, the Professor Ramasamy also pointed out this one. So just like his talk, I'm also sitting here in my house. Otherwise, I would have actually worn a mask in anywhere in the public places. So wearing mask is important, so as maintaining the public, the physical distancing. But nobody is actually following these government rules. Please listen to the government, but not nobody is following it. I think the main problem is the public is not really trusting the science. They're trusting, the alternative narratives, post-truth, and propaganda, and the pseudoscience and conspiracy theories. That is actually a big problem now. So according to me, the important asset of a good science leader is to build public trust in science. To build public trust in science, we as a leader should communicate the science in plain language, accessible to the masses. So that is the biggest asset of a good science leader. So a good science communicator will make a great science leader. So how good you are in communicating the science, that determines how good a science leader you can be. If if you ask me who is a good science leader, one example, I can easily give you Carl Sagan. Carl Sagan is a very great science communicator. You might know the Cosmos, one of the book that I read in school days that actually contributed me to choose a career in science. So this is his own statement. We are like butterflies who flutter for the day and think it's forever. We think ourselves that we are the really that important man and woman in the world, but actually we are not. We are just a star dust. You see, that is actually the statement by the Carl Sagan himself. And now if you look at the Carl Sagan, was he actually into a great position? No, he even failed to become the fellow of the prestigious National Academy of Sciences in the United States. He was not even a fellow, but still many people know him, and he influenced masses. Millions of the the mortals like us were influenced by the Carl Sagan. So I can call him as a great science leader. And here in India, we have Yashpal, Professor Yashpal. I was also one among the school as a school kid. I used to tune into his Turning Point. In the Doordarshan, I used to listen to the Yashpal's show. So Yashpal is also a great science leader because he influenced millions, I can say. So according to me, the three principle, which is actually very, very important for a science leader, is memento mori, that remember you must die. Remember the life is fleeting instance. That is exactly what the Carl Sagan is also saying. So the purpose of life became more apparent if you think that your days are numbered. The death is the final thing. So everyday morning, so this is a very famous quote by Marcus Aurelius, again the Stoic philosopher. When you arise in the morning, think of what a precious privilege it is to alive, to breathe, to think, to enjoy, to love. That actually makes you purpose in your life. That is really important. So carpe diem is another mantra which I love and I follow in my life. Seize the day. That is what the Stoic quote means. To be mindful. That is what our ancient Indian wisdom also says. The meditation, being mindful, and for a science leader, active listening is very, very important. We have to listen to others, especially with the mentoring. That yesterday Professor Kang was speaking about mentoring, and she has emphasized that a good quality of mentor is to listen actively. So that active listening is really, really important. Amor fati is another very important mantra which I follow. Love for the fate. So whatever the fate is, failures or whatever, we have to be generous enough to accept it. We have to be humble enough to accept the failures. We have to endure the failures. So, one of the very famous quote is by Rita Mae Brown, the author. Insanity is doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results. So many people think that practice makes man perfect. No. Practice alone will not make the man perfect, but learning from the mistake is more important. That exactly is a scientific method, friends. So according to me, the four important virtues anyone can have in your life is courage. That is basically, your fortitude to face adverse situations. Justice, that is the ethics, and impartiality. Temperance is all about moderation. Don't go to extreme right or extreme left, just be in the center. And then the wisdom is also very important to know, to know what is actually ethical and what is not ethical, right? The wisdom is also important. This is a very famous quote which I love a lot in my life and as well as in my scientific career. Be less curious about people and more curious about the ideas, by Marie Curie. So don't indulge in the discussions about the events or TV soap opera. I don't really follow it in my life, but I'm more curious about the ideas rather than the people. So that is, I think that this has to be the leadership. One of the set of any science leader be more interesting about the we have to foster to get more and more ideas rather than, and we have to actually impersonalize whoever the person says. Having a personal grudge on that person, just forget it. So if whatever things have happened with your colleagues, never take it for a long time. Just forget what has happened and just move on and just concentrate only on the ideas. And of course, time management is very important. I've been telling through my YouTube channel as well as through my writings. that managing time to get things done is very, very important quality of a good science leader. But unfortunately, people are really stuck in time management because they really don't read much about how to manage their time effectively. Some practice which I like and I've been doing for years, and I find it really interesting, are bullet journaling, then weekly review. For example, every Sunday, I put up what is actually coming in the next week. I review it. Then scheduling over the to-do list. I do have a to-do list, but I tend to schedule the event, into my Google Calendar. That's really important. And prioritization of the task is really, really important. This is a very famous quote by 32nd American President Dwight Eisenhower. What is important is seldom urgent, and what is urgent is seldom important. So we really have to prioritize, the important task over the urgent task. But unfortunately, most of us simply, do the things on a knee-jerk reaction basis. We prioritize the urgent over the important. So this prioritization is extremely important. So as a delegation, you can delegate the work to a student or the research paper writing to a student to make him a better writer. So don't simply write all the papers by yourself or your colleagues, and this is one of the statement which I like. This is from the Swedish philosophy, ordning ochreda. That means everything in its proper place in the world. So be organized. So that is also a big asset, or a management asset of any science leader. So things have to be properly arranged. And one of my biggest influence in my life has been that I was privileged to be part of Bharat Scouts and Guides. And in Scouts and Guides, the motto is be prepared. So being proactive rather than reactive, rather than this knee-jerk reactions or reactive, being proactive is extremely important asset of any good science leader. And this has come to me over and over again during my period in Antarctic mission, in Antarctica. So prepared to face any kind of adversities in your life. So that is what makes a good science leader. So this is a quote by Abraham Lincoln. If I had 6 hours to chop down a tree, I would spend first 4 hours sharpening the axe. So that is what the preparation is. The key is all on the preparation. Automation, I love automation. And I'm also so much into online teaching because I'm also part of the Ministry of Human Resources and Development's flagship program called Swayam. I'm also part of, I do have a course coordinator. I'm a course coordinator. I do have a course in Swayam. And that is also the same thing. So online teaching, if you do some work, if you set it, and then things are automated and it becomes habituated. So that is really, it saves ton of your time. And I'm a big fan of automation. This is a famous quote by Alexander von Humboldt. I like him a lot. I read most of his books. The most dangerous worldview is the worldview of those who have not viewed the world. So we really have to open up our mind to be receptive on new ideas and to see what is actually happening around the world. What are the best practices happening, and we have to integrate into our life. That is what my philosophy is all about. And Francis Crick, the co-discoverer of the DNA molecule, along with James Watson, his famous quote is that the dangerous man is the one who has only one idea, because then he will fight and die for it. That is actually the fundamentalism, right? That is actually the problem in our everyday life. The religious fundamentalism is there, and also terrorism. The terrorists also have just one idea, right? And they're fighting to save that idea. So I will never support that dogmatic approach in anybody's career. So virtues in a good science leader, for me, if you ask me, a good science leader should always consider reason. You should always prioritize reason over emotion. Objectivism or stoicism is extremely important. So the truth, if it's true, say it out true. If it's false, say it out false. Don't be considerate of something else. So intellectual humility is a very, very important characteristic of any good science leader. So intellectual humility is that you should understand that we all have limits, and of course we are not know all. Dunning-Kruger syndrome in the psychology, you might know that. If you think that you're super smart, then chances are high that you don't know the world really. So we should accept that we really don't know many things. So it's a very famous quote by between a good leader and a great leader is humility. And the quote by the Plato is, the only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing. So if you really know, if you accept that you don't know everything about the world, then that itself is wisdom. And I think that intellectual humility is a great asset of any good science leader. So another important asset is compassion. Compassion is empathy and goodwill. So empathy is actually, looking at the perspective of the second person, right? Goodwill is extremely important to wish the other person all the best, to see that the person recovers from the hardships. So that exactly is what you call compassion. And also self-compassion is also important. So we should really know our own limits, and we should be compassionate about ourselves, because depression is alarming, friends. So we should actually, have some compassion about ourselves as well. We are all animals, right? We are human being. Grit is extremely important for fortitude and determination. So one of the famous quote by Angela Duckworth, the American poet, is the enthusiasm is common, but endurance is rare. The same endurance of the Ernest Shackleton and many others. So that endurance of the fortitude and determination, grit, is actually lacking in many of the good, the science leaders of today. And critical thinking, ingenuity, the new ideas to foster, all these are really important characteristics. So as balanced, moderation, or the Swedish concept of lagom, not in either of the extreme, just go to a balanced or moderate or temperance view of the life is extremely important. And the temperance is eat not to dullness or drink not to elation. That same temperance is also applicable tremendously in the sciences. So, going to both the extreme is not a good asset at all. So according to me, citizen of the world and creature of the earth is very important asset of any good science leader, because citizen of the world, we should actually prioritize world as a one rather than, speaking something else. The world, we have only one home, that is the planet. And most of the problems that we face today are, the problems that the whole world is facing. For example, poverty, hunger, or the climate change. All these are really important. And creature of the earth, we are simply creature. We have to be considerate of the ecological niche, environment, the carbon footprint. Everything matters. And I think those have to be the priorities of any good science leader. And intelligent dissent over passive agreement. That point is really, really important. I always dissent with any opinion of the other. So instead of simply passively agreeing for getting things done, I always go with dissent. I register my protest, I go with dissent, and that kind of dissent of your coworkers, a good science leader should be receptive of any kind of dissent rather than, become authoritative and forcing his or her opinion on others. And Oxham's razor concept is really important. The simplicity, simple solutions tend to be far more elegant over complicated solutions. Frugality is important to save the resources. Mottainai is the Japanese concept exactly on frugality. Shibui is another great concept. Something like Oxham's razor, simplicity is important. And wabi-sabi is, finding, aesthetically finding the beauty in, imperfect things. That is what wabi-sabi is. I think that is a very important quality of a good science leader. And Miyamoto Musahi's famous quote is that, truth is not what you want it to be. It is what it is. And you must bend to its power or live a lie. So honesty and sincerity is extremely important aspects of a good science leader. So I scrupulously truthful. So it's important, the truth, especially science. A big problem in scientific world these days. Yesterday also we spoke about this in high-profile retractions that has happened recently. Retractions are always happen, and retractions is a self-correcting mechanism for the sciences. So tranquility, calm, coziness, hygge, the Danish concept of hygge, all these are really, really fond of. So be resourceful. That is really important. Core competency matters. So, lifelong learning is really important. We have to actually read a lot. So that is a very important asset of any good science leader and science communicator is read more than you write. So the Einstein's quote is really profound. Once you stop learning, you start dying. So the lifelong learning is really, really important for any science leader. So the question I ask myself every single day before I go to the sleep is, what have you learned today? I do have a journal I'm maintaining every single day. I do write, And what did I learn today? Every day is a learning experience in my life. So, I think everybody should do that. The journaling and learning what you have, writing out what you have learned in that single day. You should also know when to quit. Perfection doesn't exist. So many leaders are, they're blindly pursuing after the perfection. So that should not be accepted, that people have got their own limitations. That's really important. We should dissolve our opinions, judgments, assumptions, and beliefs. We have to stay open and curious. As for that, we have to stay as a student lifelong. We should keep on learning the new things and don't live for others. Action and education is more important than status and validity. I think those are big determinants of a good science leader. Facts are better than dreams. I usually have a problem with this dream big argument. I never support that. I think that's more like a cliche. I've written extensively. This is my blog. You can see that in my Medium blog. I've written that war on cliche. Why dream big? Follow your heart, follow your passion, work hard, pursue your goals. Advisors. I have written that, you can have a look at that article. So against the dream big argument is that instead of self-esteem that we are absolutely great, or self-confidence that I can do anything. If I want, I can take an intergalactic flight. Self-realization that understand that I have limitations, and self-compassion that it's okay to feel sad, but don't worry too much about the setbacks. After all, you did a good job, are more important, friends. So instead of self-esteem and self-confidence, self-realization and self-compassion matters. And to get what we want in our life, we should be pragmatic and work for it instead of simply dreaming. So simple dreaming will not work. So I am also against follow your heart or passion argument. Many people ask you, oh, simply follow your passion or follow your heart. So the problem with that argument is that most of us do not know what our true passion is. So where lies your true passion? Nobody knows it. For example, you say that, okay, my passion is traveling. So now the next question is that, does traveling gives you money? Is that traveling something that the world needs to see right now? All these are the yes. So we need to find a fine balance between what you love, what you are good at, and what the world needs, and what gives you financial support, and so on. Everything matters. So what gives you the financial support? So of course you have to find the mean to support, sustain your life. So everything matters. So ikigai is a very good Japanese way which I learned during my PhD time in Japan to find the purpose in life. So you can search out or read my blogs on how to implement the ikigai in your life. So also beware of the Dunning-Kruger effect. Passion leads to overconfidence, and overconfident people take foolish decisions in their life. So it's really, really important to be aware of the Dunning-Kruger. Some of the books have immensely helped me to have my own worldview on Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, On the Shortness of Life by Seneca, The Art of Living by Epictetus. All these books are more than 2,000 years old, and I'm happy to note that the first speaker of this program, Professor Ashutosh Sharma's favorite books are, one of his favorite book he recently shared is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius too. I strongly suggest everybody to see what these books are, especially on this Art of Living. It's a fantastic book by Epictetus, written 2,000 years old, and that philosophy is amazing. This is full of wisdom. So who is a science leader? You might ask me, who is a science leader, especially in India? Can you name few science leader? Friends, I can name a number of science leaders. Let me name few. Bharat Ratna, Professor C.N. Rao, Professor Ashutosh Sharma, Professor Chandrima Saha, Padma Shri, Professor Dipanga Chatterjee, Professor Gagan Kang, Mrs. Dr. Kiran Mazumdar Shaw, Professor Magdalena Skipper, Professor R.K. Kohli, Professor Ramakrishna Ramaswamy, Professor Renu Swarup, Professor Chandra, Shekhar C. Monday, Professor Shahid Jamil, Professor Shopina Sharma, Professor Shubha Tole, Professor Ella Shashidhara, Professor Alok Thawan, everybody, they are all good leaders, friends. All have lots of interesting attributes, all are from humble beginning. They are not self-made science leader. They all have humble beginning. Almost everybody has been educated in government school, just like me. I'm also educated in a government school. In my language of instruction during my school days was Malayalam. So most of them actually went to the government school and they learned that in their own language. Achieved international recognitions by themselves without any political tactics. So that is why I actually respect them a lot. They're self-made leaders and they are all anti-authoritarian, and they do have great, and they have ingenuous, and they are compassionate. All these are the attributes of all of these leaders, and that is why the program, the science workshop that you are watching right now is, it's like a dream come true to my life. I could able to get all of them in our show, and I'm really, really happy. I'm really humble for all of your support to make this event, successful. So that is why I'm really happy about all these things. What is actually happening in this science leadership workshop, and this is what, if you ask me, just one advice for the science enthusiast in general is this. This is a quote from Lewis Carroll's "Through the Looking Glass." Now, here, you see, it takes all the running you can do to keep in the same place. If you want to get somewhere else, you must run at least twice as fast as that. So that means that, lifelong learning is the key. It's very important to stay a student, be humble, and be humble. The intellectual humility is extremely important, rather than thinking that you know everything. No, we don't know anything. So yeah, that is extremely important. And I would like to end this brief talk with the famous quote by Albert Einstein: "Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. Wisdom is not the product of schooling, but of the lifelong attempt to acquire it. Once you stop learning, you start dying." We are going back to the same quote. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you so much, Felix. That was a wonderful talk. I hope all the participants must have enjoyed it, and I see the inbox full of questions for you. Your leadership emphasis on the virtues, taking failures as success, ways to success, and focusing on the process rather than the end result. And definitely for the younger, say the science students and all, the important practical notes on time management, and developing the positivities, and as for the PIs, it's the responsibility of the supervisors to portray the so-called negatives, the way the world is taking, to actually bring out the positives from the negatives. So everything we know in today's world, success, and success. But then how do we actually take it? How do we define it? If somebody is success by, good or bad ways, people tend to overlook the path. But we as supervisors need to induce the path is very, very important. In the long term, that is really going to make you complete and a future, a true leader who is
Exactly, yes.
working along with the team. It's a team thing. So with this, I put up some questions for you. So you are actually engaged into a lot of science communication and talking. So how do you differentiate a scientist communicator from a science journalist? This is from Dr. A.P. Jayaraman from Maharashtra.
Okay, so Jayaraman, science communicator and science journalism are, I would say these are kind of similar, but the journalists are, the journalist purpose is to investigate. I mean, they're actually the sphere is a lot more bigger. It's not confined only to communicate the science. So as a science communicator, for me, I feel that the science communicators, the primary task is to communicate what is actually happening in the world of primary scientific research. To write that in a common, accessible manner, devoid of technical jargons. But if you ask what is the real role of this, the journalist, science journalist, and the journalist, of course, science communication is part of their profession as well, because her job also include to write about what is really happening, science news story, but it also include the investigative science journalism, you know. So investigate what is actually happened. For example, my good friend is Prasad Ravindranath of Dr. Prasad is working for Hindu. And you might have seen that many of his very interesting stories are featured on the bad science that is happening in the country. People are faking, fabricating the results and publishing in predatory journals. All these are basically the, you know, the investigative science, the journalism. So those kind of investigative science journalism doesn't come under the purview of a good science communicator. So as a science communicator, I don't think that I will ever, of course, I respect people who do this kind of work, and they're very, very essential, but my work is not on those lines. But my work is mostly on making the science accessible to everybody. So to divulge, without using much of the scientific jargon. For example, my own show on every week I do have Curiosity. So Curiosity is a show where I pick up 10 very important papers published last week, prior week. So every week I release it, and I do not simply read the headline and summarize it in one sentence or two. No, I dig deeper. And I actually look at what kind of statistics they used it, and what kind of inferences they made, and are the conclusions valid, and how do I relate with other, the stories published earlier. So that is what I do. That the same format that I've been following for last, I would say, 6 weeks. It's continuing. It's just a new endeavor from my part. So yes, so science communicator is someone who is actually making the science accessible to everybody. Yes.
So the next question for you, Felix, is that on a practical note, since we can see you are a good time manager. So how do you manage time to execute many activities? Could you share your practices? This is Ravi Kumar Kanaparthi from Kerala.
Okay, Ravi Kumar, actually I follow something called, I can show you. I follow something called bullet journaling. You know, the bullet journaling, you can just search out how the bullet journaling works like. For example, this is my notebook. You can see my notebook. So here, you can see that day by day, I actually make the plans, and the bullets. So I make the tick marks in if I did this work, or then I delegate into the other day. So that way I actually plan quite nicely. Every week I do that. And I also have weekly schedule. That is really important. Weekly, the time that you check your calendar and see what is actually coming the week to be done, and prioritization of important over urgent. So urgent things are matters, but always responding to the urgent matters are not a good time management skill at all. And what is important, for example, if writing a book is your priority, then you really have to spend considerable amount of time every single day towards that goal. I published a book, last year I know that it is actually it's a lot of hard work, but it's really worth taking, because once a book has been published, well, I'm a man, but I can understand that probably it's a kind of same satisfaction a woman get when the baby came out finally. It's really satisfying once a book is actually released. So you really have to actually do baby step by baby step towards achieving that final goal. So importance, prioritization of important task over the urgent task is really, really essential to manage your time very well. And there are so many other techniques. For example, Pomodoro principle, you can apply an Eisenhower matrix to prioritize. A lot of things are there, and I have written extensively. You can just search my name, Felix, for crux of time management. That's one of my article where I detailed a lot of tools and tactics on how to manage your time effectively. Yes.
That's great. So there's another question which has come up, and I think you would be one of the best person to answer this. This is from Binny Mary. Many kids nowadays say that science is hard and they hate to study it. So Binny wants to know how will we get school children to get excited about science to lead them? And I think you are doing it all the time. So yeah, that would be good to talk. Like the
Come again, please. I think my internet is a little bit.
Yeah.
Could you please repeat the question?
Yes, Felix, you can listen to me. Yes.
Manju, could you please repeat the question?
Yes, Felix. So this is Binny Mary from Meghalaya.
Okay.
And she's
Okay.
asking, many kids nowadays say that science is hard and they hate to study. So she wants to know how we
Okay. Okay.
get the school children to get excited about science, to lead them. And I think you are doing pretty good in that direction. So
Yeah. So science, see that I think that one important thing is that science, to make science exciting for the kids. I think we have to actually make a storyline fashion to
I think the internet is getting interrupted. I think he'll be just back. Yes.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Manju. I
No, it's
think it's
okay.
got
Yeah, please,
disconnected. Can you
please
hear
go
me?
ahead. Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
please go ahead. Yeah.
Yes. So, the answer would that to that question would be that for make the science more accessible to the kids. So instead of simply saying the facts, you should actually put more interest on you should actually look at the concepts. So we have to actually say that concept more important than merely putting the facts. And to increase the children's curiosity on the science. Of course, a lot of problems with the everyday life right now is that the kids are more
Yes. Yes. It's okay.
yeah, it's keep on getting disconnected. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's fine.
so yeah, yes, so my point is that the kids, we have to actually look the very good, exciting, popular science books to the kids for them to read about it, rather than asking the kids to look at the mobile phones or watching the TV. We should inculcate the reading habit, and especially the books like the Cosmos by Carl Sagan. I can easily recommend any kids should read that book. So I think that those are really important for the kids to cultivate the science and habit to have an interest in the sciences. And if the kids are really
Yes, he needs to be getting back again. Yep, it's okay.
and if the kids are really small, then the parents have to read out the exciting scientific stories to the kids. All those things are important. I think some tricks for yeah. Next question, please.
Yeah. So you really emphasize on the virtues, the value system in science and leadership. There's a related question from Sunidhi Gulati from Bhopal. She's asking, what is the need for virtuous leadership in the 21st century, not only in science, in every sector? So so she's talking of virtuous working, I would say, in 21st century, seeing the scenario around. I mean, hello?
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely important. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Hello.
Because
Yeah.
people,
So the virtue is extremely important.
hello?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes,
Manju.
Felix, yes.
I think my internet is really flaky today. Yes.
It's
Come
okay.
again. What is your point again?
Yeah, so the virtues in the 21st century, I would say, in short, she wants you to comment on.
Yeah, see, the science is always important. Virtues are extremely important, especially coming to the ethics in the science, because if you achieve a position through a wrong way, you are not going to be a good science leader.
Yes. Okay. Hello. I think we'll just keep some patience.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, Felix. Yes.
Okay, okay. Yeah.
So there's
So
a
the point
related.
is that,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, please go ahead.
So I was telling about the virtue. The virtue is extremely important because a bad science leader will make the entire organization in a very terrible situation. Nobody is going to enjoy your leadership, and people will suffer tremendously. If you're a bad mentor, the students will be having extremely bad time. To get anything out of you, it will not be productive association with your student, and the PhD will not be fruitful, and you're going to inflict a lot of mental distress amongst your colleagues, and there won't be any productivity. So 21st century, or the back in 2000 years back, the virtues are extremely important. So the same principles that have been following the humanity ever since the Enlightenment, we have to actually look for follow those good practices towards the years. Yeah.
There's a related thing again by Mokulal saying, how can popular science be used to root out the pseudoscience, which is making a huge comeback in our society?
Yeah, so of course, one of the main purpose of the science communicators in general is to fight for the science, and the pseudoscience is, of course, a very, very big problem. And through my YouTube channel, and as well as my writing and everything, the pseudoscience, I try my very best to get these things out of it. So how to do that? So right now, communicate the real science, and to make the people understand and appreciate the science rather than promulgating what a pseudoscience is. So we have to discourage promoting science, and to see the excitement of the knowledge discovery is all about. The science is all about learning from the mistakes, while the pseudoscience is all about not learning from the mistake, or not accepting that they did any mistake. So there is a main difference between science and pseudo. So pseudoscience textbook, for example, same textbook is being followed for 200 years or 300 years without any change, and they say it is their asset. But science, no. Science is always modifying, learning from our mistake, and that is the only way that we can actually make some progress. So, the way to fight the pseudoscience is, to reveal the beauty of the science in an accessible manner. So, one main mistake that every good science, they try to communicate the science with lots of technical jargon, but that is not a good solution. So we really have to completely avoid the technical jargon, and we have to approach masses in a language that is accessible to them. And especially popular science article or relaying the videos in your own language is really important. I do write in Malayalam, I do release videos in Malayalam. I think that's really, really important, rather than overly emphasizing on English.
Yes. So there's another one, Felix.
Yes.
Yes. So this is quite a bit interesting on where do we put science fiction in science communication. It's by Pramod Sakharkar. Science fiction.
Could you repeat the question? It's got disconnected.
So it's a question from Pramod Saharkar, and he's asking, where do we put science fiction amongst the different aspects of science communication in general, as a contribution to scientific temperament, science fiction and scientific temperament?
Yeah, science fiction. Okay, the question. So science fiction is really important because it's a lot of imagination. So many things that we know today are actually the products of the tangible goods, are the products of the science fiction writers of the past, or the artists. One good example I can recite is the airplanes. So airplane is nothing but it is actually inspired by the drawings, the prototype drawings of the Leonardo da Vinci, of the ornithopter. That is what he said. He imagined orni means bird, ornithopter, that can design the bird like vehicle. So that kind of drawing has inspired the aeronautic engineers to design the flying machines, the so-called aircraft. So I think this fiction is really important because it actually makes the imagination a lot. It opens up the entire field of imagination for the students. So really important for have that. And those ideas that we gain, for example, I've read the Isaac Asimov, for example, he has written so many of these science fiction, and if you look at that, some of the Asimov's writing, you can say that a man with photosynthetic ability, so he don't have to eat, or drink anything. So this might have inspired it might inspire the future engineers, the genetic modifiers, to clone the chloroplast genes or Rubisco gene into the animal system. Who knows? I mean, we cannot predict how the future is going to be like. So I think the imagination is really important asset of any good science fiction is.
Yes. Yeah, that's really important. So another very, although I think many of us, the young supervisors and the new PhD students, we tend to see many of the science students and in different fields also getting reckless when when they get into the comparison box of a leader who is a boss and a leader who is a actual leader. So in terms of achievements on a time scale, so that comparison thing which is making students reckless, getting the specified components within a specified time limit to show to the rest of the world, okay, I did what I was supposed to do. Rather than what I should be doing.
Manchu, I'm sorry, your voice is breaking. Could you please repeat the question again? Or maybe you can post it in the chat box.
Yeah. So can you listen to me?
Yeah. Now I think I can listen. It says that network bandwidth is low. So I don't know what is wrong.
It's a question
Go
that
ahead, please.
It's a question that addresses the comparison
Maybe I
of
can my video.
Yeah. I'm audible now?
Yeah, go ahead.
So there's a question that is sort of trying to know when somebody gets into the comparison box of in terms of achievements, working under a true leader or a authoritarian leader, or the boss kind of leader and a leader kind of leader. The comparison box. So it really makes sometimes students reckless. Okay, I'm not able to do this, the other person is able to do that. It is from Mridula from Assam.
Yes, Mridula. So I think that recklessness that you're referring is all about, the perspective. So we really have to change our perspective to see what makes a good leader and what actually makes the so-called boss. The going along with the group think or the herd behavior, what others do, we should also follow the same behavior. For example, others are publishing trash papers in impact factor journal, we should also publish trash impact factor journal. So without any of this the contribution, what contribution does that paper makes? Majority of the papers that are being published these days, the point which I keep on saying is that the papers, even in the high impact factor journal, are nothing but mediocre paper. They do something called random left and right of the spectra without any significant change in the knowledge sphere. So does this publishing those kind of papers make any sense? Yes, it does make only two things to you. It will help you to get a job, and if you're already in a job, it will help you to get a promotion. Other than that, what exactly majority, or I can say 99.9% of the papers actually doesn't. Simply publishing is nothing but a technical, nobody can do it. There is no imagination. So you're coming back to your question about a boss and a leader, it's all about the mindset. Are you going to respect a politician turned leader?
Yes, it got interrupted. Yes. Are you there, Felix? Yeah, it's working.
Yeah, I got disconnected again. I hope it's okay now.
Yes. So
Yeah,
Felix,
did you
that,
hear?
yeah, it's okay.
Yeah.
I think it's 4:30 and we should be concluding. Uh,
Yes,
yeah.
yes. Yeah, maybe you can pick up one last question if we can do it.
Okay, so here's something like when you are talking of ethical leadership, somebody is confusing that with like, what is the difference between ethical and spiritual leadership? So it is by Rupali R.
Spiritual. Spiritual leadership is, see, it's the term spiritual itself is really tough to define what is actually spiritual. You know, according to me, the spirituality or the God, if you ask me, do I believe in God? Yes, I believe in God. For me, the God is nature. So preserving nature is really important. So spiritual leadership, if the leader is preaching to conserve the nature, lead a lifestyle which is low carbon footprint, then I totally support that kind of spiritual leadership. You know, now the spiritual leadership and scientific leadership, what is the is there any connection? I don't know. I mean, it all depends how you define the term spirituality. You know, so for me, I define the term spirituality as someone who is leading a environmentally conscious life. He is the most spiritual man or a woman in the world, rather than someone who actually reads the religious texts. You know, the religious text, if you look at them carefully, if you read it carefully, the profound wisdom is saying to respect the nature. So if you do that way, then of course that is a scientific way of living. So scientists are also saying the same thing, to lead a life as close to nature as possible, you know, rather than living a life of artificiality. You know, so the carbon footprint matters, carbon neutrality matters, and you know, the climate change is a major problem around the world. So what science says and what religion says is also kind of same, but it also depends how you define the religion. You know, so according to me, the religion, the message is very clear that we should respect our mother earth, and we have only one earth, the pale blue dot. So we have to be living a life as close to the nature as possible. So that makes you a perfect science leader. Yeah.
So thank you, Felix. So that's absolutely true. We are just a small part of that pale blue planet, again, which is a small, dot in the entire universe as you define it. And we should be, trying our best to contribute in our all small, virtuous ways towards, making it a better place to live for us and for the future
Yes.
generations to come. That was a wonderful talk, and I really appreciate of your ways of doing things, the unconventional ways, doing different things and doing them differently. So I think we all enjoyed it. Thanks a lot to
Thank
be
you
there as a
so
speaker.
much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Dr. Manju Jain, and it's a privilege to have you here. And I will see you
Same
again
here.
in, we will be moderating some other sessions too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you
sure,
so much.
sure.
And I will
Yeah.
see you all at 5:30. So our next session is at 5:30. So see you
So
all.
now
Goodbye.
now he is in the role of a host. Yeah. Bye. Thank you.
Yeah.